short on content. Tropical disturbances that reach tropical storm intensity are named from a predetermined list. On average, 10 named storms each season, with an average of almost 6 becoming hurricanes and 2, maybe 3, becoming major hurricanes, category 3 or more. You would think there'd be a lot of named storms in 1 or 2 years. The largest number is 27 in the year 2005, and this is the most named storms in a single season since 1933. And as anybody who's named Irene or any other name would know it, it's really shitty to be named after the hurricane you were born in, which has actually happened a couple of times. And it's really hard for a hurricane to be named after you because it implies you're going to get picked on if you're a kid. Totally triggered. But the other thing is, why are they named that way? Well, to make them easier to remember. But there's almost never 26 or more. Now the rule, if you're not aware of it, for entropy factor, for maximum combination number if you're dealing with any kind of system in computers. Yes, I'm going to invoke this. Not everything relates to computers, but this is my field of actual extreme amount of profession at one time. There's 26 letters in the alphabet and 0 through 9. That's 36 combinations. So let's just use real simple idea. The average number of storms per year is 10. Those are named storms. So you could just say, hi, today we're dealing with Hurricane 1, 2020, Hurricane 2, 2020. Just, you don't even need to use anything else. And then after that, A through Z if you get a really extreme year. You could decide to switch it up a bit and not use 0, obviously, so you'd only have 35. But again, I mean, if you have so many storms that you really have to revert back to the using names instead of numbers and letters, we could call it Hurricane A versus through Z, right? That would take care of virtually every single, I mean, we only had a record of 21 named storms in 1933. So let's just do that. Let's just use the alphabet. And then if we get to the point, okay, we've gone past it. This is Hurricane 0. Or better yet, Hurricane 1 through 0 or Hurricane 10. But we could call it Hurricane A through Z 2020. That would eliminate anybody's name involved. I don't think anybody's name or number would be a teasing point. Now, is this really a teasing point thing? No. It's that naming them doesn't make them sequential or time-based. My preferred method is the hurricane upon landfall date, which is 2020 May 4th. The May 4th storm. Everybody calls them the storm of May 4th or whatever, whenever they first make landfall and make enough of major damage that we call it that. That's what it's called. The hurricane of '06. That's actually how people treat it. The ice storm of 1965 in Portland, Oregon, for instance. I don't know if that's the actual name of it. Nobody would say, Storm Ike. Why? So that's what this video is about. The idea here is that it nullifies any kind of, well, it's tradition. I don't give a shit. Naming them Hurricane 1 through 9 would work. They're already sequential. Sometimes two of them hit at the same time, but they form on different days, and they're already arbitrarily named. Well, we have to be fair and balanced. No, we don't. That's why I'm making this video. Yeah, it's a slow day. I didn't get any questions on the channel, and I made a video about hurricane naming formats. Now, I'd like to point out naming formats. Time to get triggered. Big Indian versus Little Indian totem pole naming format. How do you store numbers? From least significant to most significant, or from most significant to least significant? And is it how you read it on the screen or how it's stored in RAM? If you're using a data buffer, is it first in, first out? Or last in, last out? Or first in, first out? Is it FIFO? Fifi? This is actually something that comes up a lot. Well, it's racist calling it Big Indian. No one cares. But unless you know the cultural reference to a totem pole, big Indian for little Indian, or is it the totem pole? Is it something else? You'd have to look it up. I'll have a link in the description. We have red book versus yellow book versus green book standards, because that's the color of the cover for a book for whatever standard when it was written up. AT&T had a book standard, a color code standard. The color or rainbow table standard, but not rainbow table these days, that's another meaning now, was also used for figuring out the type of CD-ROM formats that were used. Yeah, some of you don't know that. Unless you have to look this stuff up, you don't find out what goofy name it was. Oh, it happened to be the manila or red cover that was put on it, so they could have a color distinction. Okay, but then they're referred to later as ISO 98622 or whatever. A deliberately arbitrary and completely unrelated name for it. The naming structure for using century, year, month, day, hour, minute, second, and then ticks, that's called T, not time, ticks, is old. We use hundredths or thousandths of a second or microseconds. We do not use ticks because what's the tick of the clock? Well, what clock speed do you want? Is it 5,000 times a second or 1,000,000 times a second? If you're doing GPS, it's microseconds or picosecond timing. If you're just using timing like we all do for videos, it's frames. Well, how many frames a second? You can have 120 frames a second in a video recording now. It used to be standardized at 29 point something frames per second. Yes, that's really a thing, instead of a round number like 30. For actual real technical reasons. But who gives a shit? Now we don't have any standards for it. So do we do milliseconds? The standard, as it was called, is called NTSC, National Television Standard something. I don't even remember it, and I had to learn it and quote it verbatim. I can still make a clock circuit do video synchronization, I think. The point I'm making here is these standards and the names they had in some cases had really goofy histories to them. The history of why it's called HTML, why it's called Java. Is there a Mocha standard? Yes, there is a standard or a file type or a activity called Mocha and Java. And yes, Sun Microsystems might have had a coffee habit. Is there a T standard? Don't ask, it'll probably show up. And if it doesn't exist, someone will name something that way. Mocha. Espresso. And by the way, did you know the mascot is a little red-nosed guy that's triangular shaped? Illuminati penguin confirmed. So anyway, tropical storms are named by a list. They could just name it. Well, what's its literal name? One. O-N-E is a word. It's a name. One. What's the last one? 9. That's not a name. It is now. Tropical disturbances, tropical storms, hurricanes, typhoons, smog! Sword and Magic Helmet. Quote the accurate name of that Bugs Bunny cartoon. Anyway, Wabbit season. Anyway, thanks for listening to me whine and complain. I do it a lot. You're welcome. But yeah, if there's 10 storms each season on average, 1 through 9, and then the letters of the alphabet would be fine. We don't get a Hurricane Donald. Has that already been done? Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Maybe they just chose the name so it would have a unique name across the entire year, so there'd be only one Hurricane Donald. I don't care. I still want it to be numbers.